Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, and welcome to this second episode of our live stream, the second session live stream, questions and answers. Since the second session was quite long, I would rather just go directly to the questions today, and let's see what we can do about answering them. So the second session was about mutations. And I have a set of questions here. So I will show you the question on the screen, and we will just answer the question. If you have not seen session 2 yet, you can still listen to the question. And later, you can also see the session. We're having a little bit of a problem on Facebook, so those who are having the live stream on Facebook, please switch to YouTube. All right. Okay. So let's now go to the our questions. So the first question says this. It says, accumulated mass amount of evidence for evolution, fossil records, comparative anatomy, and genetic evidence that all point to one common organism between us. All right. So he says he just hears this all the time, and excuse me, we're just having this problem on Facebook for some reason. So we'll just be removing it. Sorry for that. We need to fix the Facebook problem. If you're watching this on Facebook, just switch to YouTube now, please. Okay. All right. So, okay. So question 1 is, accumulated mass amount of evidence for evolution, fossil records, comparative anatomy, and genetic evidence that all point to one common organism between us all. So he says, I hear this a lot whenever I watch some YouTube videos by Muslims and non-Muslims. Likewise, how much truth is in these evidence found, and how much is speculation? And he also says, I remember you saying that Luca cannot be proven. If it cannot be proven to a single cell, then does that mean we can believe in multi-cells that evolved? I feel that makes more sense. Okay, so let's take the question step by step. So yes, evolutionists say that there are huge amount of evidence, but the trick is not to say or not to say that there is evidence. The trick is to look at the evidence and make sure that it is really evidence. It is not just somebody saying something that is unsubstantiated. The evidence that you will have about evolution can be easily seen or categorized as evidence for adaptation. And adaptation is quite different than evolution. And then the question about Luca, yes, Luca cannot be proven. It can be inferred. It can be seen as a speculation. because what Luca is like the common denominator between the different creatures in terms of genetic material. So this genetic material seems to be present in the different organisms. And since the genetic material is common between them, then the inference is this minimum genetic material, the inference is they're coming from the same universal common ancestor. And of course, there are various other different explanations to this, including that this is just the minimum genetic material that can sustain life, and that the designer and that the designer who has created life is essentially using this to make life happen. So this can also be a fair explanation. Now, here is the second question. It says, is random mutation recognized as an error among scientists, or is this your interpretation? The answer is yes, random mutation is recognized as an error generally in the literature. As I explained in the session, the objective of the DNA replication is to make a copy of the DNA material into a new target cell, whether this is just like cell division, so the new cell needs to be a copy of the previous one, or this is producing gametes, so the sperm is picking up genetic material from the male, and the egg is picking up genetic material from the female, etc. And it's clear evidence that these copies are intended to be faithful copies, because there are, as we have seen in the session, multiple levels of error correction present, which is clear evidence that this process not only wants to copy, but also wants to copy without errors. However, this is life, and errors are possible in chemical systems, and hence there is first level, second level, third level, etc. errors, error corrections levels. And yes, mutation is perceived as and is referred to as errors in the literature. Yeah, the third question says, is it fair to say all living organisms are connected through a family lineage just because our DNA is similar to other living organisms? Can't we say that the creator that created us let me, there's a continuation to this. Yeah, can't we say that the creator who used the same coding structure and ligaments and bones to construct us, and he carries on this, saying it's like a programmer. So just as I can code a game using zeros and ones, and all I must do is to copy and paste one playable character using a programming language and create a new character instantaneously. So now my new character will have zeros and ones similar to my original character, but I make a few changes depending on how I want my character to be like. Can't we just assume that the creator designer coded using ACGT DNA code, did the same with the humans, just duplicated the design over and made some changes? Yes, we can assume it's a hypothesis too. Number one, you need to resort that there is indeed a designer, and this that life is obviously designed and created, not a matter of chance. And then you would consider that the designer who is capable of doing this could have done it in different ways. Now, whether evolution, the Darwinian way, is the way that he used or not, we should examine the claimed mechanisms and see if they are really have proper evidence, which they don't. And then when you resolve that they don't, then you can put any other hypothesis and test it. If you put a hypothesis that creatures have been created this way all the time, you will face a problem that it is probably unfalsifiable, because when you're looking at this, it will be difficult to put a test that will show that this is not the case. But is it possible? Yes, of course, it's possible. Okay, we have another question. Question number 5. It's okay. It's suggesting that I do a session with other people who talk about the matter, like Sabur Ahmed, and maybe even make a debate with David Solomon Jalajil. I don't mind if somebody knows the subject persons. I will be glad. And there is also another question about also another Muslim YouTuber who talks about the matter of evolution and putting a link. And I have actually followed this link and checked out the person, and I have sent her a request to come to my channel. So, okay. The next question says, okay, it's about features in the DNA. So let's see. We'll put the question on the screen now. Yeah, so here it is. It says, you mentioned that DNA holds functions, and these functions will only be expressed when there is a need. So my question would be, is night vision in human DNA, but it is not active? And he goes on saying, surely night vision would have been a good selection to keep for survival if natural selection is selecting our DNA, don't you think? We have enough accidents during the nighttime to activate this function. Well, yes, I say that there are functions in the DNA that will not be expressed until there is need for it, and in this case, it is a certain response to the environment, and this is what epigenetics do. But this does not mean that every possible function is available in every other creature's DNA. So if the function is not there, it cannot be expressed regardless if you need it or you don't need it. So this is an important manner. So needing something to happen, and then this thing due to this need, even if the function is not there, would appear, is not really what the Darwinian mechanism is talking about. The Darwinian mechanism is talking about random changes, random mutations, and then if by chance a mutation that is beneficial in a certain environment occurs, then natural selection will fix it. So it's different than maybe the Lamarckian way of thinking about evolution, which will be more driven with what the creature needs or what the creature wants to happen. Like, for example, a giraffe developing a longer neck because it needs to reach out to the trees. Okay, we also have another question here, question number 8. Before we go to that, there is a comment. Let's see. So So there is a comment on the comment section. So if the function is not there, then how did a species get a new function? Okay, so free your mind. Let me put the comment on the screen. So free your mind says, so if the function is not there, then how did the species get a new function, which is related to question 7? It's a very good question, which is really a massive challenge to the Darwinian mechanism. Because obviously, as I also said in session 2, you have creatures that definitely, when you go back in time, so you have beans and I don't know, lions. And the theory will tell you that they have a common ancestor, because eventually everything has a common ancestor. And obviously, in the genetics of beans, there are functions that are not available in genetic of lions, and vice versa. So how did these functions come? The Darwinian mechanism will tell you this. It will tell you that a gene was sitting in peace, and then for no obvious reason, it is copied, it's duplicated into another place in the genome, and this duplicate will now sit there waiting for random mutations to change it. And then if random mutations do their magic, maybe this new gene will become the gene that delivers this new function that was not there in the original creature. And obviously they will always appeal to that this will happen over millions and millions of years. Does it make sense or not? To me, it doesn't make any sense. Because as we have explained in the session, just to get one more beneficial protein is like looking for a grain of sand in the whole sand that is on the surface of Earth. And this will be nothing compared to the difficulty of finding the next beneficial protein when you look at the real probabilities that we have there on the ground. It's like 1 to 10 to the power 77. And even if the estimate is big, it's 10 to the power 60 or 10 to the power 40 or 50, this is an unimaginably huge number. And this is just to produce one protein. So if you want to produce a complete function, for example, bats can use these sonic waves like radars, sharks can use electric waves like radars, creatures gaining eyes, gaining ears, gaining sense of smell, versus ancestors that did not have that, etc. It really becomes totally absurd. But this is what the theory says. And this is a major problem with the theory, is that the theory cannot explain novelty. So, for example, it might be able to explain that this breed of dogs looks quite different from its ancestral breed of dogs. And when we are going to look at that, we will see that this is typically due to loss of function, not to innovation of a new function. Okay, so for example, a dog would have genes that would make the bony structure of the mouth, you know, like pointed. And if this gene is broken, maybe you get a flat-faced dog. And there are many other examples that, for example, can affect the style of the hair, the length of the legs, etc. If a gene that is related to growth is affected, maybe you can get legs that are different. But you will not get wings by having a duplicate of the genes that produce an existing feature in the dog, and then those genes are subjected to random mutations until they, you know, they become wings. It's totally absurd to me. And novelty is one of the major problems in the theory of evolution. And if novelty cannot be explained by the theory of evolution, then what is it good for? Because adaptation does not need this theory, really. Adaptation can be studied, and it has its own merits. We do not need Darwin to account for adaptation. All right, so thank you for the question. All right, so Free Your Mind says it makes no sense to me either. All right, I agree with you on that. Okay, so we can go to question number 8. Question number 8 says, let me put it to you on the screen. Here's question number 8. It's a long question. All right, so it says, I could agree with Darwin saying that God, between parentheses, intelligent being, blew life into the first cell, and from there everything started, as now we have an intelligent agent acting from will and causing our creation. Don't you think? Well, yeah, but if I definitely agree with God breathing life into the first cell, but probably Darwin just said that to take abiogenesis out of his theory. So Darwin was studying how life changed from life that already exists, then it diversifies and gives us everything that we have today. So the comment of Darwin about God breathing life into the first cell is not something that we would really consider the theory good or not good because of it. Because then the question is the scope of study of the theory of evolution, which is the diversification and change that happened to life from the beginning, from the point that there is life until the human being. Can that be explained by natural selection acting on random mutations or not? And can that mean then that, yes, life is just this first universal common ancestor, last universal common ancestor, and then things will go on mechanically from there without need for intelligence, without need for guidance whatsoever? We'll just go forward. If you say, okay, I accept that from Darwin, but in my opinion, the intelligent agent remains in the picture, he keeps on and on guiding the process, you can say that, but evolutionists will not consider what you are saying to be consistent with the theory, because the theory insists that the changes are completely random. And the natural selection has no intent, has no foresight, it has no objective whatsoever. However, they insist that while this is the case, that life will progress and diversify. All right, so we have the next question. I can also put it for you on the screen. If can you hear me quite well? If you can hear me quite well, if you cannot hear me quite well, please let me know at any point of time. Okay, so no, this is not the one. Okay, so here is it. All right. So this question says this: the E. coli experiment, which is something that I explained in on Evolution 2, which is part of the preparatory material that I sent you on the Tuesday email, says the E. coli experiment was an interesting case study you mentioned. Have they followed up with what made the DNA activate the receptor to accept citrate other than glucose, and have they admitted that the codes were already present? That the codes were already present and didn't actually emerge, but rather get activated. Yeah, the experiment is still going on until now. I'm not sure how many generations, but I think I came across that it's past 75,000 generations now. Maybe more, maybe less. And what occurred is that they just labeled it acceptation. And acceptation is still, there is this function, and the function is sitting somewhere in the genome, and then the function just jumped in the right place. And why? Because random mutations are because there is this transposons and this mobile DNA concept that goes around. And when you are looking to people who are looking in who are thinking in the Darwinian way, it is not easy for any person who is thinking in the Darwinian way to admit that something is happening because there is intent. There will always be the explanation, well, E. coli is multiplying every few minutes, and there are millions and millions that are taking place of replications and multiplications. So there is a chance that the right acceptation will happen at a point of time, and then it will be a fortunate event for the E. coli to now have the function that it was looking for. But the obvious counter argument is, what on earth was the rest of the machinery in the E. coli doing? So the experiment was about throwing E. coli in a medium and depriving it from glucose, and then suddenly, and putting citrate, and then suddenly finding that E. coli is metabolizing citrate. And what happened is part of its genetic code was moved from one place to another, giving its cell wall the ability to let citrate in. But this is not enough for it to metabolize citrate. It needs the rest of the citrate machinery, metabolism machinery, to be in, and it is in. So the question is, why is this machinery already existing in it? If it was completely useless, then even according to the theory itself, then those genes that were never used would have been destroyed or gotten rid of because they are consuming energy to replicate them, at least. There will not be answers. They will tell you, we will know, one day we will know. But they will not accept that functions are pre-programmed there, and that there is wisdom that is governing things. It's very difficult for evolutionary naturalists and materialists to give you this response, unfortunately. We will follow on in detail on this one, maybe in later sessions and in the assignment. Okay, I have few comments about one of the videos I sent you in the material. I think it's on evolution 2. I'll also put the comment on the screen for you. It's a long comment, so I'll just put the beginning of it and read the rest of it. All right, so our friend here is saying, yeah, around 18 minutes into the video, he's referring to on evolution 2, you mentioned about shocking a dead body to make it alive. He says, I say the same thing too. Quite a few athletes have passed away over the recent years, and I always think to myself, this body is an athletic body, healthy, strong body. Why not just shock him or her and restart the body? Everything is perfect and strong, so it should be possible, right? All that happened to the athlete with a sudden death, like heart stop, no slash wounds or gun wounds, so restart him or her with an electric shock. For me, this is enough proof that we are just more than body and flesh, but I don't see how others fail to recognize this. Yeah, they will tell you that within this time that the athlete went away, that his systems, maybe his brain is so damaged he cannot come back to life. I agree to your logic, but they will tell you that there is something that has gone wrong and we cannot bring him back because this thing that has gone wrong will not come back again. But Allah has given even different challenge. He said in his book, create a fly. So you have the materials, you have the technology, create a fly. I don't think anybody has lived up to the challenge. So not raising someone from the dead, that's for sure, and not even raising a fly or creating a fly from scratch. With that, I've gone into similar discussions with people, with materialists, and they say, well, creating a fly from scratch needs so much money and so much investment. Maybe it's not happening because nobody cares. Well, yes, many people actually care, because nanotechnology today, etc., will just dream of having biological robots, like flies and like mosquitoes and like ants, delivering things and moving around upon instructions and upon programming. Actually, research now is trying to do this. So false reasons. Of course, modern technology would love to create bots like flies and insects. And God is just telling you, if you think that life can be a product of purely materialistic processes, go ahead and create a fly. So also again about the on evolution too, he says around 22 minutes. I love how you explain that the naturalist will accept a what theory but not a who, and he's referring that theists would say who created this, and they wouldn't accept from you to say who. They would say what. He goes on saying, I see this with my atheist friends too. They always entertain the idea of aliens, simulations, brains in a jar. I think he's talking about Boltzmann brains, random atoms colliding, multiverse theory. But when I say, guys, what about an intelligent creator theory? They always laugh and say, nah, there is no proof for that. But yet they entertain other absurd ideas without any proof. As you said, the likes of mythological laws that they've never witnessed. Yes, this is, I agree with your comment. Yeah. I also received this final comment, and I also put it on the screen for you. It's a long one. I'll just come up with the whole thing. Yeah. So it's a comment and a question. He says, around 13 minutes into the video, you said the following: this century, evolutionists were crazy about the experiment. He's referring to the E. coli experiment again, the Lenski experiment. Because all the time they had the same problem, that their mechanism is not observable. You're saying that natural selection is working there with random mutations and doing this and that millions of years ago. Show me. So it takes millions of years ago. How can I? It takes millions of years and it happened millions of years ago. How can I show you? So when we tell them your theory is unobservable, they say it happened millions of years. We cannot show you. And then I will respond that it's unfalsifiable, it's unobservable and untestable. And that the point is that the theory is really mythology. It is something that you cannot falsify. He says that was fire, how you ended your comment. I feel the same too. Believing in a creator that designed makes more sense than a random mutation. So how is your evolutionary theory any better than mine? Yeah, I agree with that. Why would you believe in evolution theory? It's not like its evidence is any more than believing in a creator, because a religious person concludes by observing, designing contingency and systems and DNA, etc., just as the evolutionist does too, by observing old bones, history, DNA, etc., and eventually making a decision based on faith. Well, he asks, it is strange, why do they do this? I feel like it's just to run away from the accountability and morality and accept their own desires. What are your thoughts? Well, number one, my thoughts is that they are not the same. Because you look at life, nobody disagrees that life looks designed. The disagreement is it looks designed because it just looks like so, but it's not really designed, or it looks designed and it is designed. But from our experience in engineering, we know that the way life is created, those integrated systems are real design. They are not apparent design. We also know that random processes destroy things. Random processes do not build things in our experience. You put up any system and you start bombarding it with random events, you destroy it. So believing in the theory of evolution is completely different versus believing in an intelligent creator. Because believing in an intelligent creator is justified by the fact that life and the universe look pretty well designed. Believing that random changes and errors created all of this is an unjustified belief. It needs evidence, and it doesn't have any. Yeah. A final thing here, and before we close, somebody's a comment saying, he says it's slightly off topic because he's talking about abiogenesis. He says, I watched a video about chemical evolution and it might interest you as it mentions a plant mutating. Maybe you give your thoughts on it, and he gives me the video. It says, the video starts by saying scientists have reason to believe. Yeah, scientists have reasons to believe. But when a theist says that we have reason to believe in a creator, they say, how silly, it's just a belief, no proof. Yeah. And then he says that the video goes on and also and speaks about the type of plant mutating and then becoming dominant due to it growing spikes and not being eaten by other animals. The problem with this example is for me that it is still a plant. I aim to see a plant grow legs and run from danger. Well, yeah. All the examples that they will tell you that are observable are examples really of adaptation. You cannot really ask evolutionists to show you a plant growing legs because they are not claiming that plants became animals. They are claiming that plants and animals share a common ancestor. We can ask them how bacteria became eukaryotes and how eukaryotes became multicellular eukaryotes, and then how those became animals, like insects, like trilobites, for example, and how those became all those different animals, and how bacteria became single-celled eukaryotes that then had chloroplasts, and then it became multicellular, and then it diversified into all those plants. And those are issues that we are going to look at because there are no good explanations for that. There are no reasonable explanations for that, only absurd explanations that the theory offers. And then he says that the same video that he saw says this: apparently life started through a chemical evolution at the bottom of a hot hole in the crust of the earth. fatty acids being formed in the crust of the Earth, and thus scientists believe chemicals can evolve into biology under the right conditions. Well, yeah, evolutionary thinking, the line of thought of evolution has nothing to resort to because there is no belief in anything outside of the material universe. So whenever there is an obvious change, an obvious jump, there will always be an appeal to randomness, an accidental event. A random event happened that caused this to happen or that to happen. And when you hear this, okay, normal chemistry brought forward organic chemistry. So what? If we bring some dead organic material today, can you create out of it synthetic organic material? You synthesize it. Can you bring out of it a creature? If you can, go ahead and create a fly. And since no one can create a fly, I think we can call it a day. Because any talk about chemical evolution from traditional chemistry to biochemistry, and then from biochemistry to a living cell, protocell, and then cell, and then different competition leading to Aluka, and then leading to this life is completely unfounded. And if it is founded, show us. So, okay, to close here, we have a few things. Number one, I'm going to be renovating the course site on findingtruthchannel.com. So soon enough, maybe in a day or so, I'll be sending you to check out the site where you will have the whole material for the sessions and their supporting material in one place, instead of sending you news broadcasts on email, which is what we're doing now. So this is going to happen within the coming couple of days. So watch out for that. Please do invite your family and friends to this course, and those who are interested in it, please do watch the sessions and send questions prior to the live stream, so we'll address your questions in the next one. I hope you are enjoying this, and if we have no further questions in the comments, I don't see any further questions. So thank you for attending this live stream, and please do share the sessions and the live streams with others, and see you next Saturday. I'll be sending you the new episode or the new session by email through the week. We have an email on Tuesday for preparatory material, and then an email on Thursday for the session, and then we have our live broadcast on Thursday. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, peace be upon you all, and see you again soon.